Welcome to the Education Innovators Podcast, Season 5, Youth Perspectives. I'm Eric Byron. On this podcast, I talk to educators and experts, and this season, students, as we explore what innovation in education really looks like in practice. We're here to inspire and to showcase solutions, not problems. Let's get started.
Yeah, I just don't like this aspect of always comparing students and predefining what they have to do. Again, to some extent, it's necessary, but there should be more freedom. So I think something like rubrics or having this portfolio is very helpful.
Yeah. That's Laura Schroeder. She is a high school student from Germany who's had a front row seat to two different education systems, having also studied in the US. Now, she has some strong opinions about what schools do wrong, but she doesn't just point out the problems. She has ideas for how to fix them. And we talked about grades and AI and project-based learning and her participation in the Knowledge Society. Really interesting stuff and an unfiltered youth perspective. Keep listening. My guest today is Laura Schroeder, and she's a high school student driven by curiosity and a desire to create meaningful impact. As an innovator at the Knowledge Society, she builds projects at the intersection of AI, project-based learning, and student agency. Laura is on a mission to reimagine secondary education by returning to first principles and the why behind education, advocating for personalized, interdisciplinary, and foundational education that equips students to thrive in today's world and the one ahead. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited.
I'm excited too. This is going to be so much fun to get a new perspective. Most of my guests on the show are educators. Many of them, like me, have been doing this for decades and decades. And so to have somebody who's really experiencing education still, right? You're in high school, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So this is going to be a wonderful interchange, I hope, of thoughts. And you're going to give me some wonderful insights into what it's like being in high school and how we can fix it.
I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to jump right in and let's talk about personalization in education. So you make this strong case for the importance of students being allowed to develop their own unique character. And I like your
Mhm.
analogy. By the way, I read some of your stuff on Medium, right? And I liked your analogy of a plant being given what it needs to grow, but the shape and the form of the plant is allowed to be unique.
Yeah.
Putting that in the context of students. So, what's the solution? How do we personalize? How can schools give students more opportunity to follow their own path?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that is it's kind of hard to answer just because every school has so different prerequisites and situations. And I think one thing that it really comes down to is like what are sort of the structural requirements, and that is yeah, that differs from country to country and state to state. So as of right now, you would still have to kind of move between like in between these boundaries. But I would say overall, as a teacher, I know it's really hard, but it's important to really understand your student and build that personal connection. And then know like if you're talking to that student one-on-one, it's important to like always tie it to what their interest is. Because for example, when I'm in math and we're doing some problem, like the last time we did a problem which was about like building some sort of stacks of wood in a forest, and I was like, yeah, that's not really interesting to me. But if it would be, I don't know, maybe combined with physics, and it's about like a dancer who's doing some like turns, that would be interesting to me because I'm a huge dancer. I love dancing, so that would be fun. So I think within the current constraints, it's important to just um yeah, you can imagine it as like having like a button where it says like make it relevant to me, and then kind of see like how can I tie it to that student. And then overall, I think if we could kind of reimagine what those structural requirements, and I'm talking about like especially like policy, and all of that, if that could be changed. I think then it's important to just giving the student this autonomy and freedom and let them sort of be in the driver's seat and then let them be like, okay, like what does the student want to learn? Like obviously there needs to be some sort of standardization, right? Like it's kind of this, you can imagine it as a spectrum where on the one side you have standardization, on the other side personalization. And I'm not saying that everything should be personalized because then, for example, one risk is that you're just going down this rabbit hole and like each student has like such a sort of, well, yes, it is individual, but it's kind of like being in their own bubble. So I think it's still important to have, to some extent, some standards. But yeah, then overall, like there should be more room for personalization, and that can be with like having more choice in what classes you do and like when you study that and how you study that, and with whom you study that. So yeah, I think there are some possibilities for personalization, but especially in Germany, I feel like there are just a lot of constraints. So, for example, when I was in the US at the American high school, I was so happy because I could like actually choose my classes and choose what I'm interested in. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
What school did you go to in the US?
It was like a public high school in Nebraska.
Oh, okay. And they had more choices than you have in Germany. That's that's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
So in Germany, everyone has to take pretty much the same classes.
Okay.
But then in the US, like obviously you still have some requirements and some classes that you have to take, but there's like much more freedom of choice and a bigger variety of what classes you can choose in the first place. Like, for example, there was like health or finance or entrepreneurship. These don't exist here in Germany, at least in my school.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And it draws a great kind of contrast. And I like that you are reasonable about it in understanding that we can't swing all the way to kind of full autonomy and individualization because it's simply not realistic, right? Teachers can't manage a classroom with 30 different curriculums for 30 different students. I like the way you frame this up and you say you make it reasonable, which is really, really important. Tell me a little bit about TKS, the Knowledge Society. Who organizes this and what are they doing as an organization to drive innovation in education?
Yeah. TKS is a global innovation program for teenagers, and the founders are Naveed and Nadeem. So they started TKS, I think it was like in 2016. So this global innovation program is 10 months long, and like you have to apply for it, and the applicant or like the acceptance rates is not that high. But basically, the only requirement that you need is like being curious and ambitious to some extent. So that's sort of the premise. Like, right, we're just looking for, or they're just looking for curious and ambitious high school students. And TKS is it's there's a lot to TKS, honestly, and you could even say it's like an entire lifestyle. Like, right, it's not just a program where you do some online meetings, like it's so much more. And in TKS, we have our cohorts, so there were like around 30 people. But overall, like this year, we're I think like 1,000 people from really all over the world, teenagers from 13 to 17. And we have our cohorts, and there we have like our directors, which are kind of like our mentors. And then each week we have sessions where we meet for 3 hours and learn about different mindsets and emerging technologies, and then also do some like hands-on practice and projects. And then throughout the year, we have different opportunities coming up, like the challenge or hackathons or workshops or moonshots, which is also kind of like a project where you try to like innovate a lot. And this really exposes us to the actual world. Like we are working with real life companies. So in January, we had the chance to work with Lovable, which is the fastest growing software company right now. And we basically got to be like their professional consultants for a month and then kind of come up with a solution for a problem that they were facing. And I learned like how to design a like a consulting deck, how to do like outreaches, how to validate an idea, how to come up with a solution, how to create a prototype, like all these things that you will need in your future. That's what we learn at TKS through these like projects. And the main thing is called our focus. So that's where each student chooses their biggest passion, interest, and then does these projects within their focus area. And this again, like really prepares us to build these real life skills and also connect with other professionals in the industries. And then also just, just follow our curiosity. Like there's no constraints to the focus in that sense. Like you can literally choose any topic that you like and then go build something.
Awesome. So I'm trying to grasp how this fits in the overall world of education.
Mhm.
So these guys just kind of started bringing people together to give them a framework by which they could be curious
Mhm.
and do projects. And over 10 years, it's grown into this fairly large community, I guess, of teenagers
Yeah.
who participated. You said you actually have to apply and they don't accept everybody. So tell me a little bit about that. What's the criteria? Do you have to pay to play in this thing?
Mhm. Yeah. So for the application, you have to submit an essay and a video. Yeah, I think yeah, like it was like a year ago, so I can't remember. But yeah, I think it was these two. And if you're applying to an in-person cohort, so mine's online because in Europe there's no in-person cohort.
Okay.
But especially in Canada and the US, you can also join in person. And then instead of the video, you would do an interview. And there just talk about yourself and your interests and why you want to join, like what's your journey. So yeah, you kind of talk about that. And then yes, TKS costs something for these 10 months. It's like $5,000, I think, but they're pretty generous with scholarships. So I applied for a scholarship too, because otherwise I don't think I would, yeah, be able to finance that.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends are also got scholarships. So yeah, they're pretty generous with that. But yeah, obviously it's still some sort of exclusion or like selection because yeah, not everyone's able to afford it. But overall, like if you really want to join, like you will find a way to join.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like the fact that it's not free because free has no value until
Mhm.
you take it a lot more seriously when you had to pay
Yeah,
something. Even if you had a scholarship, you still got some skin in the game, I'm sure. You feel like, yeah, you better do your work now and make the most of that opportunity because you got in. So that's good. That's good. And I'm sure they
yeah, definitely.
have found investors, if you will, folks who believe in what they're doing and help put up some of that money for scholarships to make it more accessible um, for the
Yeah,
truly curious.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's really worth it because maybe one part that I kind of didn't talk as much about before it was that yes, we like have all these opportunities and directors and like projects and all of that, but what it really comes down to is just how amazing this community of students is. Like you meet so like every single week I meet so many new students from all over the world. I learn so much about like them and their work and their interests. And I was like, yeah, finally I have this like group of people who are kind of like-minded and also want to do something and have an impact, and it's just really helpful like on your personal journey to have this group of people who support you and to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
So yeah, the community is amazing.
Great. Tell me about your project.
Yeah, so well, the focus area is has like a certain framework. We first start with the article. It's called the learn article, and then you do replicates, usually like two at least. And this is like a smaller project where you try to replicate something that's already out there. And for my first replicate, I did like a Socratic chatbot where I learned about like fine tuning and how to train a model and all that. And then for my second replicate, I decided to create a platform where I would connect like students and educators and employees. Then I kind of pivoted into what I'm building right now, which is passion fruit. And for my second replicate, I built a prototype for that. So I used Lovable to vibe code the prototype. And right now I'm creating passion fruit like as an actual full stack platform using Cursor and Claude. And Passion Fruit is a platform that encourages high school students to start building projects by connecting them with each other and by lowering the barrier to actually starting. So on the platform itself, on Passion Fruit, you have like the project gallery where you see projects from other students. And either like if you upload something, you can get feedback from others, but also help others to get inspired. Because I think especially when you're starting, a lot of students don't know like what you could even do, like what is a project. So that's sort of what I'm trying to help with this gallery. But the main thing is about the community. So I'm planning to create this Discord community of students, and there we can again support each other in our building journey. And I will give some resources. Maybe we'll have some meetings to kind of yeah just support each other as students on our building journey, and then they can again like upload their projects to this platform. And what it comes down to is yeah really just helping students to get started, because I still remember like my 15-year-old self where I had so many ideas and kind of this spark inside of me, but it didn't really have this sort of place to thrive in. And also it's about like taking responsibility of our own learning, because I think the current education system, like, yes, to some extent, we do learn something, but I think overall, it's not really preparing us for the future.
Yeah. So TKS is filling a gap, is what you're saying. There's something missing, and you
Yeah.
found it in TKS. Is that pretty
Hmm.
accurate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. This is so good. And your enthusiasm is infectious. I just love, how positive you are about what you guys are doing. But I want to drill a little bit more into this community stuff. So I'm going to just read a quote from you. So it says,
Yeah.
schools shouldn't exist as a parallel reality. They should be embedded within their communities, addressing real problems and creating mutual value. Okay. So,
Hmm.
so outside of being able to do this at TKS, how do we do this, right? What does it mean for a school to be embedded within their community?
Hmm. Yeah, I actually like that you're mentioning that. And I just kind of thought about what I was thinking in that moment when I was writing it. And I kind of have this scenario in my mind where schools are really like if you take like a city or a town, like it's not just this place where all of the students go and then they leave at like 3 p.m. or something. It can be really part of the community. So let's say there's, I don't know, they need some like shelter for homeless people, or they doing like a food drive, or I don't know, they want to clean up the streets. So this can be a project at school, or they want to create like a, I don't know, just like an event where they support elderly people, or just kind of have like a party in the city. And then, students can plan that too. And by planning these events and projects, they actually learn like what it takes to build something and to do something, and also to collaborate and all of that. So kind of just having this mutual benefit where there are actually a lot of opportunities that might be a problem within their community, but then they can actually talk to the students and let them be part of the dialogue in how the town or the city or whatever, or even the school itself, can be improved, and kind of changed. So I think that's how I imagine this sort of mutual benefit, and also being embedded in the community. And also something like, so here in Germany, we have like a startup which is called Live Teachers. And whenever there's a teacher that can't come to school because they're sick or whatever, they take like an actual employee, like an adult who's working, and they come into the school and they talk about like their work and what they're doing. And it's just like 45 minutes, like a lesson, but this can be life changing, like all of a sudden you hear about this job that you've never heard of, but you're kind of like, wow, this is cool. Like I want to do this too. So just kind of also bring this work life experience into the schools, but then also having this mutual exchange. So yeah, I think that's what it would mean to be really to have like a school that is embedded in the community.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I can't remember what they called the program, but when I worked at EA in the video game industry, we participated every year in there was this like special day across multiple schools in the community where professionals came out and did that. Yeah, very cool. I like your answer, and I have to admit you echoed so many things that have come up on this podcast. right? So it's great to see that kind of from the other side, from the student side, you see it too, that this opportunity for the kids themselves to kind of see what's going on in the community and find ways to
Mhm.
help. Join forces, elbow to elbow with
Yeah.
adults trying to solve a real problem in the community. And schools can be a place that orchestrates this. I also did an episode on Singapore and why Singapore
Hmm.
schools are so effective. And actually, one of the
Oh.
outcomes of that conversation was that it's community driven, that um, like
Mhm.
at a societal level, Singapore takes education really, really seriously. And so people get involved in their community school, whether they have kids there or not, whether they're a teacher or not, they support the schools and get involved in stuff. So yeah, yeah, really, really important. And I love that you touched on that aspect that schools can do more to be a catalyst in the community and to bring the kids in
Mhm.
and let the students help drive some of that. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
you've been I mean, you talked about, right, these projects and stuff. And so tell me why you think that project-based learning should be more integrated into regular schools so you don't have to seek out TKS to do project-based learning. Why is it so important?
Yeah. So one reason why I think project-based learning is so important is because it teaches us these soft skills because they are becoming more and more important. And yeah, I think they should not be named soft skills because it kind of suggests that they're like not as important. Like obviously you need to know the facts, right? You need to have some like skills and all of that, but I think these soft skills are yeah, they're becoming more and more important. And project-based learning is a method that teaches these soft skills. So, like, how do I communicate effectively? How do I collaborate with other people? Also, things like empathy and just like this, yeah, like I guess like how we work together, and also critical thinking, like all these things. Those are things that are really well practiced by doing project-based learning. And then also what I like about project-based learning is that there's no one correct solution because in class and when I take tests, I always I'm like I'm not really thinking about like what do I actually know. It's just like what does the teacher want to hear? Like what am I gonna get points for?
Mm.
So it's like really being in this rigid mindset of like, okay, what is this one solution and I have to get it right. But when doing a project, like there's no right solution, right? It's really the focus is on the process and this doing a project allows for a lot of personalization, right? Like, do I want to focus on this aspect or on the other aspect more? And since there is no right solution and no sort of predefined path, it really teaches us like how to solve problems. Because in life, like there will be just a lot of like barriers and problems that we will encounter. And having this ability to just like keep pushing and figuring it out is absolutely essential. And then also when you do a project, it seems much more meaningful. Because if you're just like studying from a textbook, like yes, it can help. And you might learn or might create some sort of memory. But if you're like actually doing something and if you're in the process and if you know that this has an actual value and it's connected to real life, then like engagement is just much higher.
I agree with everything you just said. That's yeah, no, I'm a proponent myself too of project-based learning, and that's actually what caught my eye first was I saw an article you had written about project-based learning, and yeah, so all right, I'm going to quote you again. Let's talk about assessments. You wrote this. Learning becomes a performance, not an exploration, and certainly not something enjoyable. It's widely known that grades don't always mirror true understanding and competence, rarely are objective, and never good for mental health of young people. Those are some pretty strong words, Laura. So, if grades are bad for young people, what's the alternative that you propose?
So I think for that, I like to ask myself, like, why do grades exist in the first place? And while in like high school, for example, I think it's just a way to compare your performance and know like if you're achieving the standards. And then once you're out of high school, grades allow universities to kind of know, okay, is this someone who like fits our profile or doesn't? So again, it comes down to like comparison. And if we look at universities and if they get like, I don't know, to like 20,000 applications, I don't know how many they get, then just looking at the grades obviously is like easier. So I think grades are just like so ingrained in this education process. But I think in order to really have an alternative that, um, yeah, it would be really like beneficial, like that would benefit a lot, you would kind of have to some extent, restructure the process of how you kind of move forward in education, right? You like advance from grade to grade by using grades, and then you go to university also to some extent based on your grades, especially here in Germany. Yeah, I think that's kind of tricky, but obviously in my dream world, those you would just, for example, like have these portfolios. So I think yeah, that's an option that is even becoming more prominent right now, is to have these portfolios and kind of show your extracurriculars and what you've built. And then obviously like there's also the option of like having these rubrics, for example, where you don't have like a clear grade that says like you're this point. It's more like, okay, you can improve here. So I think that's an option that could even work right now, and that is like often being done, or I've at least experienced that in my American high school. But I think even there, yeah, I just don't like this aspect of always comparing students and predefining what they have to do. Again, to some extent, it's necessary, but there should be more freedom. So I think something like rubrics or having this portfolio is very helpful.
Yeah. So well, you nailed it again, Laura. You're just like so insightful and in tune to the kinds of conversations I have been having with folks. In fact, just yesterday I was at an international school festival here in Hong Kong where all the international schools come out and try to convince parents to send their kids there. And I go around and I pick on them and try to, ask them, what are you doing that's really innovative? But I had a great conversation with somebody about grades. And she also agreed that grades exist for matriculation, right? That the system is built around that ability to decide to move you up, right? And as you pointed out, go from grade level to grade level, or then to university or whatever. That those grades are important. And until we have another mechanism that people really accept, like portfolios or whatever, it's really hard to get away from that system. And as you point out, and at least one of my guests also agrees with you, they do harm, right? It's not just oh, it's good for the school, but it's actually bad for the students as well, right? And so I'm hoping that more people kind of grasp this idea that grades are actually bad. They're harming our children more than they're doing them any good at all. And it really only serves the system, not the students. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, also just from my experience when I'm with my friends, I just kind of see like how immersed they are in a system and how important, like, grades matter to them because it's just this narrative, like you have to get good grades, and then go to a good university and get a good degree and all of that. And I just like see how much pressure they put on themselves and how much stress it is for them. And for them, it's just like all about grades and about like they know that it's pretty rigged, right? They know that it's very dependent on a teacher what grade you will get, that the grade might not really reflect what you've learned and if you've learned like something in the first place. But yeah, if you're kind of dependent on these grades, then it is really harsh. It is really stressful and it's a lot of pressure. And especially as a kid, as a teenager, like that is not something that you should be exposed to.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to quote you again because you have some great quotes. So you also wrote this, I think kind of sums up what you were just saying. It says, memorization without context is closer to forgetting than to understanding. We memorize, we take the test, we forget. Well said. Thank you. It's a problem because when you make the grade more important than the learning, then that's what we do. Actually, an interesting kind of side to that. I believe that the emphasis on grades also drives cheating and why so many educators were fearful of AI because
Yeah.
if the goal is just the grade and AI can get me a better grade, I'm in because the grade is what's important, not that I learn something. And so,
Yeah.
so how do you view that as a student and the use of AI and this fear of it being just used to cheat?
So yeah, that's a pretty good point that you're mentioning there, because I think as long as we have this these rigid standards and this pressure to get good grades, and yeah, as a student, I take any opportunity that I can to get better grades, and that can be through AI or also like if you're using digital devices in class, then why not just look up an answer because it will give me a better grade and the teacher won't notice.
Yeah. So your perception or perspective on the use of AI in school and this fear of it being used to cheat, right? So diminishing cognitive skills and human intelligence by allowing students to use AI. This is the argument you will hear constantly from educators saying, no, 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 they can't use AI because it's just dumbing them down. So what's your perspective on that?
Right. Yeah, so this might be kind of a hot take, but I think in the current education system, and again, maybe I'm like just very immersed. Like I've mainly been to the German school, so I'm speaking more about that. But I think in the current system, it might actually be harmful to use AI. Again, it depends on how you use it. And I think if you are doing some sort of research, then like yes, obviously use AI. But I think what always has to come before that is this AI literacy. Because there's a lot of this half knowledge about AI right now, and even among students, because in English class we had like a lot of discussions about AI, where I just noticed like they kind of just like pick whatever they hear like in the news or whatever, but it's not really grounded in what research says and what AI can actually do. So I think just teaching students about like what is AI, how does it work, and especially in high school, if you are have these like math classes, then you can understand like on still on a basic level, but you can understand like how it works technically. So I think just having that understanding is important as well. And then obviously, like, what are the dangers? Like, yes, it can replace your thinking. It can diminish your cognitive capacities and abilities. So I think there it's about like what sort of boundaries and what scaffolding do I need? And then obviously like also having the right tool set. You shouldn't just use ChatGPT in class. There need to be like specific tools. And there are a lot of out there, like EdTech is really booming right now. So I think once you have this AI literacy, then yes, you can use it for certain tasks, like to research, for example. But I think, for example, like if I imagine now, like if our teacher gave us an AI to improve our writing, like we wouldn't use it to improve our writing. We would use it to write, to let the AI do the writing for us.
Yeah.
I think what would be really helpful is to, again, give the structure where this intrinsic motivation can really be fostered and this curiosity. Because if you really want to learn something, you will actually be mad if AI gives you the answer right away.
Yeah.
So I think then the risk of like misusing it and just jumping to the result right away will decrease. But then yeah, overall, like if we're not just talking about chatbots, like there you can like generate a song, you can generate a video, you can generate an image, you can generate a website, an app. So I think there like that has enormous potential for doing these projects.
Yeah.
So like even in class currently, like if we're analyzing like a poem, which we're doing like all the time and just like analysis and all of that. But why not use AI and be like, okay, let's just create an image to recreate the scenario of the poem and how you understand the atmosphere. Right? That is something that can be done right now. So yeah, I think that these are like some things how it could be used. And what would really need to be worked on is just like giving teachers this AI literacy in the first place, because they are the ones who are supposed to be responsible and teach us how to use it. But if they don't know like what AI is and how to use it, then yeah, that's gonna go the wrong way. So I think that just everyone has to kind of yeah have the same journey and really understand that AI is here and we have to understand like how to use it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So you clearly are AI literate. I'm guessing you didn't learn it from your teachers. So
No.
how did you become so literate and you created an AI tutor with Socratic questioning? Oh, I heard you, talking about earlier. So where did you learn it?
It was pretty gradual, I would say. So I think definitely since ChatGPT, I found it like really fascinating. I still remember the first time using it. Like it was just, it felt like entering a new reality. I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is incredible. And then, just like watching some YouTube videos, kind of hearing about AI. And then I think what really jump started it was writing this Learn article in TKS where I wrote about like this AI powered PBL platform and how you can use it to personalize education. And there I like really try to understand like how it works on a technical level and how that can be used for like a PBL platform. And once I kind of had this mathematical foundation, I was even more intrigued because I was like, wow, this is like it is kind of, it's like linear algebra, obviously in a very advanced level, but then it can still create this like it's kind of this entity that still seems so human-like and can do so many tasks. And then yeah, it's just like trying out these tools. Like yes,
Yeah.
you can read about them and talk with people about them. Like that's also what I do. Is just talk to a lot of people. But overall, like yeah, just watch some videos, use these tools by myself, and then also kind of reflect about like how did it feel, what could I do with it, what didn't work well. Yeah, I think especially for AI, a lot of people are kind of anxious, I think, or some people, but there it's really my advice would be to just like try it out and experiment with it. Like it's fun.
Yeah. All right. So tell me the truth. Are you an average teenager? There's millions of people like you who are so curious and just go out and learn these things on your own, or are you special?
Yeah, no, I'm probably not like an average teenager, but I meet a lot of people who are like me in TKS, for example. But yeah, if I look into like the normal classroom, then yeah, no, probably not.
Okay. Because, yeah, it's a delight talking to you. You are so curious. And this is something I talk a lot about, right? How do we get students to not lose their curiosity, their creativity, their desire to learn, which is really all that curiosity really is it's a desire to learn things. And you have that in abundance, Laura. I love it. Yeah, it's really good. So you're going to be graduating soon, I assume. What's next for you?
Yeah, so well, I'm in 12th grade right now, and in Germany we have like in Bavaria we have 13 grades, so I still have
Oh,
like
okay.
1 year, 1.5.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, obviously like the end of my high school journey is yeah, it's coming closer and closer, and I am thinking about what should I do next. And I did some research for like universities, and since I'm in Munich, I have like the Technical University and the LMU, so those are options to just like study there. It might be something like philosophy or politics, or there's like a study program that combines politics and technology. I might also do like this like teacher training or like education, not because I want to become a teacher, but because I just want to like go through it to kind of have a say in this conversation. But overall, I have to say that I'm like, I don't really like like, I can't imagine myself studying for like 3 or 6 years and then getting a degree and all of that. So right now, I'm just trying to create as many opportunities as I can. And then just, yeah, I'll probably just kind of do my own thing. University might be an option, but maybe I'll just kind of um, yeah, continue with passion fruit and try to scale that. And then I also have, yeah, some other plans here in Germany about like creating the student community and also getting more into content creation and all of that.
Yeah. All right. Any last kind
Um,
of comments? Anything you wanted to say that we haven't covered?
No, I think we covered a lot of great things. I mean, I think overall, I think like a lot of like educators are listening to your podcast, right, and other people. And I guess what's important for me to say is it's important to really get the student perspective, right? Because in these conversations, they're like often educators and teachers and policymakers and entrepreneurs. But I think what's kind of missing is just like the student perspective. And it doesn't have to be like all fancy. It can just be like literally going into the classroom and like talking to students. And yeah, I think just because right, like we are the ones who are sitting in a classroom. We're the ones who are enjoying this in education. So I think just yeah, just talking to students and kind of getting their perspective is really important.
Laura Schroeder sees the system from the inside, and her observations are harsh and real, but they're not without offering alternatives. She talked about portfolios and rubrics and project-based learning, and AI used creatively rather than as a shortcut. And I love uh, this conversation. Um, Laura didn't just learn this stuff from a textbook or a lecture. She learned it by experiencing two different systems, by joining the Knowledge Society, by teaching herself AI, and by building something. Her project, her app, Passion Fruit, which is designed to help other students. That's learning in action, which is something we'll be talking a lot about in this season. Laura actually introduced me to several other students who you'll be hearing from in the upcoming episodes. So if you think she's impressive, keep listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with teachers, students, parents, anyone who's interested in the future of education. I'm Eric Byron. I'll see you next time on EIP, the Education Innovators Podcast.